12, a Gambian passport, 2 passport-sized photographs with a white background, as well as a vaccination card showing proof of intended pilgrims' vaccination. Ladies are urged to be covered with a veil when taking their passport-sized photographs. The intended pilgrims, according to the release, are expected to respond immediately to fulfill all processes and requirements, including medical examination, vaccination, and visa, as they are likely to be on their first flight for this year. A detailed announcement will be done in the local languages. You can now monitor Grts Radio live on our website at www.grts.gm. We'll be back with more stories right after this short break. Welcome back. Days after he was elected into office, Somalia's new President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud has survived a suicide bomb attack on a Mogadishu hotel where he was holding a press conference with Kenya's foreign minister. And the National Press Council of the Ivory Coast has ordered the suspension of 16 newspapers that sympathize with former President Laurent Gbagbo. We have details of these and other stories in this roundup of African news.
Somalia's new president survived an assassination attempt Wednesday, just 2 days after he was elected. President Hassan Sheikh Mohammed escaped unhurt after 2 blasts went off outside the Mogadishu hotel where he was meeting Kenya's foreign minister. 3 soldiers were killed in the attack. Islamist rebels claimed the blast. The 3 suicide bombers were killed by police. Gabon's President Ali Bongo convened both houses of parliament Wednesday to announce his rejection of a national conference called for by the opposition. Bongo's move came after an aggressive campaign by the opposition that wants the president to step down. Bongo said the conference was aimed at perpetrating a constitutional coup. I'm not afraid of dialogue, but I will not sit down and talk to people who do not respect their country's institutions or the leaders who represent them and the laws of the Republic. Bongo also called for a new law that would oblige political parties to include young people and women on their lists. Libya's National Assembly elected 61-year-old Mustafa Abu Shagur as the country's prime minister. Shagur, who is considered close to Islamist groups, beat the liberal candidate Mahmoud Jibril by just 2 votes. Shagur faces the daunting task of restoring security in the troubled country. Côte d'Ivoire's National Press Council ordered the suspension of 6 newspapers that support former President Laurent Gbagbo. The CNP accuses the papers of publishing photos of Gbagbo and his aides, now in jail, with captions detailing ministerial posts they were given during last year's post-election crisis. Pro-Gbagbo papers are frequently suspended by the CNP, mainly on account of their refusal to acknowledge Ouattara's victory at the polls in 2010.
The United States is in a state of shock following the death of its ambassador and other staffers of the American embassy in Libya. The Benghazi attack, which occurred 2 months before the presidential election in the U.S., has brought to the American political stage foreign policy issues. And as we hear in this report, Mr. Obama is sending Marines to Libya to protect his country's diplomatic compound and help arrest the perpetrators.
Americans are deeply shaken by the death of 4 of their diplomats in the attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi. According to the U.S. administration, it was an attack planned for the aftermath of September 11 commemorations. Most probably a premeditated act by Al-Qaeda, the U.S. said, sparing Libya from any blame in the wake of the Muslim outrage over a film poking fun at Islam.
Since our founding, the United States has been a nation that respects all faiths. We reject all efforts to denigrate the religious beliefs of others. But there is absolutely no justification to this type of senseless violence. None. The world must stand together to unequivocally reject these brutal acts.
The U.S. is in a state of shock over the death of its ambassador, known for his engagement in the Arab Spring. How can this happen in a city which we saved from bombardments, Hillary Clinton wondered on Wednesday? 2 months ahead of crucial presidential elections, the attack brought foreign policy issues to the forefront of the political stage.
The attacks in Libya and Egypt underscore that the world remains a dangerous place and that American leadership is still sorely needed. In the face of this violence, America cannot shrink from the responsibility to lead.
The Benghazi attack is a reminder to Americans that the current democratic transition in the Arab world is still very fragile, and Islamists continue setting traps. President Obama is sending Marines to Libya to protect the U.S. Embassy and help arrest the perpetrators of the attack.
At least 14 people have been injured in clashes in Venezuela between supporters and opponents of President Hugo Chavez. Hundreds of Chavez supporters blocked a road to the airport where his rival was due to arrive. And Germany's constitutional court has ruled that the European Stability Mechanism, a prominent rescue fund for the euro, was not illegal under German law. We have details of this ruling and other developments in this roundup of world news.
Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte has claimed a victory in parliamentary elections in the Netherlands. His pro-Europe Liberal Party narrowly edged out Labour, taking 41 of the 150 seats in the lower house. The two parties will now form a coalition. The vote was regarded as a test of anti-European sentiment in the country. The election was called after Geert Wilders' anti-European Freedom Party withdrew from the government 6 months ago over Mr. Rutte's budget cuts. The party suffered heavy losses, taking only 15 seats, compared to the 24 it won in 2010. Another pro-European signal came from Germany on Wednesday, where its constitutional court ruled that the European Stability Mechanism, a permanent rescue fund for the euro, was not illegal under German law. With yesterday's ruling, the Eurozone took a major step towards solving its debt crisis. It was a personal victory for German Chancellor Angela Merkel, strengthening her position before the upcoming parliamentary elections. The European aerospace firm EADS and the British defence contractor BAE Systems are in talks over a merger. Under the terms of British corporate law, the agreement must be finalized by October 10th or abandoned. Because of the politically sensitive nature of the businesses, governments are closely following the negotiations. Should the merger prove successful, the new company would become a global giant, overtaking sales by the American firm Boeing. At least 14 people have been injured in clashes in Venezuela between supporters and opponents of President Hugo Chavez. Fighting broke out on Wednesday near the airport in the northern city of Puerto Cabello. It was the worst violence yet seen since the presidential campaign began on July 1st. Hundreds of Chavez supporters blocked the road to the airport where presidential candidate Enrique Capriles was due to arrive. At a meeting held following the incident, Mr. Capriles said that the violence was not spontaneous and accused President Chavez of spreading fear.
And over now to sports. It's been an emotional day on Merseyside in England, a day that Liverpool fans have been waiting for almost a quarter of a century for. On Wednesday, they finally got to hear the truth about what happened on that fateful day when 96 supporters were crushed to death at an FA Cup semi-final. We have details in this report.
At a memorial here in the heart of Liverpool, the 23-year wait is over for the families of the Hillsborough disaster and this community in mourning. For many of the people we've spoken to here today, the reports released this morning have reopened an old wound.
There was actually gasps when some of the information was read out. People were actually fainting at the time. Certain people were carried out because they were fainting. You could hear tears, people fidgeting on chairs because obviously uncomfortable with what they were hearing. And the panel actually had to, in some way, hurry the process forward because people were getting so agitated at what they were listening to, you know. So it was a very, very difficult time for people.
Me, my brother and me two of our mates, we all went to the game on that day.